Curious with Josh Peck is brought to you by the new Showtime original series Kidding, directed by Michel Gondry and starring Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey. Carrey stars as Jeff, a.k.a. Mr. Pickles, an icon of children's television and a beacon of kindness and optimism to both children and adults alike. When his family life starts to unravel, Jeff discovers that keeping it all together isn't as easy as 1, 2, 3. Will Jeff head for a breakdown or a breakthrough? Don't miss the new series Kidding, Sundays at 10 p.m., following new episodes of Shameless only on Showtime. Download the Showtime app and start your free trial now. Welcome to Curious with Josh Peck. Start the show. Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Curious. I'm Josh Peck. Hope you're enjoying the pod. Hope you're enjoying your day. Recently I was reading the reviews on iTunes for the podcast because I'm a glutton for punishment and a narcissist while also hating myself. And it was funny because this guy took issue with the fact that I called the podcast a pod. And he kind of did that douchebaggery thing of saying, like, listen, I like the podcast, but let me give you some insights into where you're going wrong, fella. Like, you're cute and all, but you're not seeing the error of your ways, and I'm just woke enough to awaken you to your fuck-ups. So I guess the guy won, because not only did he make an imprint on myself personally, but here I am acknowledging him on the pod, like, already talking about him for far too long. So, well done, sir, you win. Also, fuck yourself. No. First of all, thank you. I'm glad you like the pod. Secondly, I'm sorry I call it a pod. I don't quite know why, but c'est la vie, which I know you guys didn't know that I was bilingual like that, but I know another language, because that was French, I think. I just talked in French. That's all I know. It's not my intention to be like, make pod some cool, millennial term for podcasts or what have you. I just am lazy. Or I thought it, I don't know. I probably won't stop saying it, but you probably have a point. And look, either way, I take back everything I just said earlier. You're right. I'm wrong. Thank you for listening. I'll try to do better. But I wouldn't hold out a lot of hope. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to change for you. Wow. This conversation has already gone in so many different directions. What's going on with me? Just going to be a father. Last week, my wife and I announced that we are pregnant and going to be the parent of a baby child that will be on this earth rather soon, like within the next 6 months. And holy crap, it's gonna be an experience. I'm nervous and I'm excited. My wife is beautiful and the best, and I think she's gonna be the greatest mom ever. And I think I will be a serviceable dad. I think I have a good chance at not overtly screwing this child up, because I'm a fairly good citizen with a manageable amount of emotional baggage that I don't necessarily need to project on this kid, and that's good. But I'm scared, guys. I'm in anticipation of my life changing, because it inevitably will, and it will 100%. Most likely, there's a good chance probably be for the better. Yes, seems to be the general thinking that children enhance life, that it brings meaning, that it takes the focus off of ourselves, because inevitably, how many fucking yoga classes and Zumbas and dinners and brunches and trips to wine country can you take? Eventually, we gotta be putting our focus into something other than Amazon Prime, or Donald Trump, or, how much gluten is in said meal. So I'm excited to have my attention taken away from self and to be put towards something that is of value. Right? I don't know. I'm sure this will be a big part of my sort of opening rants to the podcast from now until infinity. No, definitely throughout these next couple of months, and then once the baby decides to come join us outside of the stomach. But it's been an experience. I take solace in figuring that I just know so many people that are knuckleheads that are parents, and if they can do it, I imagine I can. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting new experience. I never met my dad. Whoa, where is this going? I never met my dad, and he's deceased now, and so I don't have that framework. But I have an incredible mom who played the sort of the role of both parents. I have a great big brother, great friends, great father-in-law, all these, brilliant people that I can borrow from and model myself after when taking care of my kid and trying to sort of correct what, I don't know. I remember someone once said to me, like, you need to have a child so you can sort of correct what happened to you. Like I didn't have a dad, and what he did, I'm sure he had his reasons, but wasn't necessarily the best thing to do, not be in your kid's life. And now I'll give this kid everything I didn't have, and thus I will sort of close the loop. And hopefully the dysfunction will end with my kid, or it'll be manageable dysfunction. There's no way this kid's getting out clean, okay? The father like me, come on. You know what I mean? My wife's amazing, but she can't combat all this. This is 31 years of neuroses. Anyway, guys, today's episode is my friend Nēv Schulman. You would know him from CATFISH on MTV. And, Nēv and I have sort of known each other in passing over the years. And then, as you'll hear on the pod, we recently got closer over the last year. And I think he's just incredibly smart and thoughtful. And I was so lucky to have him agree to be on the pod and chat. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Here's Nēv. Oh, and check out the season finale of CATFISH this Wednesday at 9, 8 Central on MTV.
How long do you usually go?
We'll feel it out, right? Okay. But I wouldn't say, I doubt we'd go more than an hour. Just let the vibes happen. Some people be doing those 3-hour podcasts, and I don't know how the hell they do it. Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Dude. This is happening.
Hello,
welcome. God bless.
Yeah.
I think we need to get...
You say that.
I do.
Yeah. Are you conscious of your... Because I listened to some episodes. And
you have?
I know. Yeah. Well, I do a little research coming into something.
I am. Well, you haven't said whether you liked it or not yet, but I am still honored.
I did like it.
Thank you.
I find that my favorite part is just your little sort of like current events at the top.
Really?
Just like your thoughts on things.
Hey.
I particularly liked. I guess it was your last episode where you talked about posting, like just that. Why everyone feels the urge
to tweet
their commentary on things.
I feel strongly.
We don't have to get into it. I thought you did a good job expressing feelings that I have as well. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you. Say more, because I'm always interested in people that have like-minded views.
But I noticed that you say God bless, and I think it only stood out to me because my dad also says it.
Really?
And he's not a particularly religious guy. I don't know that you are either.
Not
really. That's just an expression that you like.
I do like it. And I've weirdly found myself, it's a phrase that I've incorporated into my vernacular later in life.
Right.
And so I find that no matter what, you seem to fall on a couple catchphrases. We all have the things. And so if I'm going to be saying something constantly, it might as well have some goodness in there. Some awareness. I don't know. I'm like the worst. I'm not a great Jew. But I'm a pretty good spiritual person, maybe. Mm-hmm. Good, strong spiritual life. But anyway, tell me more about what you love about me. Yeah. Let's stay on that topic.
Yeah, no, this whole thing, everything. I love your setup. It's so casual and comfortable. Yeah,
it's just you and I here.
Yeah.
So your name is Nēv.
That's right.
And when did you get rid of the ya?
I don't. It was a little bit of a process. I know that from a home video that exists from when I was probably 3 at a friend's house playing in the backyard, I can hear people referring to me as Nēv.
Right.
So it started very young.
Yeah, it was part of
It
your...
wasn't my choice. It wasn't like I selected Nēv as a nickname. It was just part of my childhood. I do remember, and this is probably exclusive for this podcast.
Get excited.
No, it's not. It's nothing. But when you're a kid and you start going to school, and you have to write your name.
Yes.
Especially in the late 80s, early 90s, when I don't want to call it. What would you call that sort of? Remember that S that you could draw doodle design and name spelling in the sort of wake of graffiti and skateboard culture.
Yeah, it was very important.
Was cool, right?
Very cool. How you decorated your binder.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and then what was it? The white paint pen. Where you could do some dope shit.
The whiteout pen. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Well, so at the time I was trying to figure out how I could make Nēv visually as cool as possible. So I actually wrote it Nēv, but I put a line over the E, a straight line, which you don't think about and probably haven't ever noticed, but it is actually a character that elongates the vowel, in this case, the E.
A Hebrew character.
No. Just a grammatic.
Okay.
It's just a thing. It's an actual tool that in some language, English as well, but you don't really see it in an English word. So it's probably not an English character. It must be some other language.
Gotcha.
But it gets used occasionally in English, most notably Palm Pilot. Do you remember?
Sure.
them? They had the Trio.
Yes.
Which was a phone, and the Palm Pre.
Right.
Both of which had a line over the E. Anyway, no big deal.
You're one of those people.
So I sort of pioneered. I don't even know what it's called. That's how I wrote my name for a long time. And then handwriting got pretty phased out by computers.
Right.
And no one knew how, including myself, to write that character because it required a real deep dive into your settings.
Keyboard.
Right.
Yes.
So it got lost. I lost the line and have sort of been on a mission ever since to teach the world how to say Nēv instead of Nēv.
Does it kill you with the Nēv? It's got to be a little annoying.
It's just a little annoying.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
It's not your favorite. It's like when people ask me where Drake is from Drake and Josh. Whenever I go out, I'm like, guys, he's probably at his house.
I get that with Max.
Do you?
Yeah, where's Max?
Right, they assume you guys live together.
And do everything together.
Yeah, that you wouldn't deviate from each other's presence.
Anyway, so yeah, my name is Yaniv.
Yaniv, I love it.
It's nice.
Yeah, and your brother is Ariel.
Ariel, yeah.
So
he goes by Rel.
Rel.
And I go by Nēv.
Rel and Nēv.
Yeah.
I feel like in an effort, it's so interesting because I'm Joshua, but if someone called me Joshua, I would think they were talking about someone else.
Yeah, that's weird.
I have been a Josh since day one. I've got friends that are Dave, and if they tried to call themselves David, I would get angry with them.
Weird, yeah.
I feel like that's an unacceptable phrase. And then my wife's brother is Kelly, but that's not even his name.
Huh.
It's Kenneth John.
That's the crazy thing is when you find out that someone you've been calling a name forever, it's like, oh, that's kind of my middle name, or it's just a nickname. It's not even. Yeah, that is always weird.
So to your point about social media and sort of tweeting and whatnot, how are you as far as commenting on what's going on in the world and politics and whatnot? Do you kind of try to stay away from that?
I go through a very similar thought process every time I think about posting something.
Yes.
And there's probably there are variations, obviously, depending on what the type of content is. There's a theme that I think there's a theme to the thought process that I go through, whatever the post. And it usually starts with, do I need to post this? Why am I posting this?
Right.
Is the first thought. And then I think that's very quickly followed by is this a good post? Is this what's the
well worded?
Well, yeah, or what is the motivation behind this? Is this just self-promotional?
Yeah.
Is it just because I feel a pressure to
stay relevant?
Stay relevant. I know that the more I post, the more engagement I'll get, and
keep the machine going.
Right. Am I doing this just because I think I'm supposed to?
And you're the face of a TV show, so I don't doubt that every executive's in your ear going, you know what?
You know what's funny? very, very rarely has MTV ever asked me to
Are you
tweet.
kidding?
Ever.
That's incredible. You found some loophole because anything I have ever done, and maybe it's because they're only casting me for my social media presence, they're like,
Right.
we've got this great plan for you to post 15 times over the next
No, it's
2
funny.
days.
I mean, occasionally they don't even ask me to live tweet ever. I mean, they'll send me
that's great.
an email at the beginning of the week like, hey, here's some content, some GIFs, some images if you want to post.
Right.
But no, I don't know if it's because I was sort of already an adult and I'm an executive producer on the show and I just, yeah, they don't have any expectations of me in terms of social media engagement.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, which is cool.
Oh my God.
And I also think, and I don't want to deviate too much, but a lot of what I'm proud of in terms of my platform is that I don't use it just as a,
Yeah, you're not selling.
yeah, I'm not, whatever. So to get back to the sort of the energy that I bring to social media, it's usually like, why am I doing, like, am I being gross and am I just like posting something
Yeah, is
for
it
myself
for vanity or ego?
Right.
Totally.
And so most of the time I try, if not to find a balance, to sort of lean toward like, how can I make a post meaningful?
Right.
Or say something that might help someone or start a conversation that I think is important.
But that hesitation is everything.
Right.
People lack that hesitation, which is why I've got a timeline full of fuckery and like ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I probably overthink.
Right.
I
Well,
wish I could just
Jewish.
casually post stuff all the time. I mean, I see other people doing it. I'm like, man, that must be nice just to not at least seemingly not care and kind of just like, oh, whatever, like I occasionally I'll get lost in Miley Cyrus's Instagram and I'll just be like, oh,
here.
so fun, right? She just a 30-second video of her eating popcorn. Like, God, I think I'd like that.
I wish I was that carefree.
Right, so carefree.
Right.
But then I realized my default state is not sharing, right? Like,
Yeah, of course.
so for me, every post is an effort. I have to really sort of apply myself and say, I should post something. What am I going to post? Is this picture good enough? What am I going to say? What does it bring? Add, change?
You self-critique.
Right, and I probably eliminate 90%. For every post, there's probably 9 others that I thought about or said I should probably post this and then forgot because I just don't care.
Do you have a committee as well? Will you run it by your wife or a friend before if you're on the fence? Because my wife is very good at striking down my best ideas.
Yeah,
She'll be like,
I'll ask Laura sometimes, like, what do you think? Should I post this? Well, for sure, if she's in it, I have to.
100%.
I made that mistake too many times.
I said some shit about my mom on the podcast the other day, and I think I went as far as to call her bossy, and I so didn't mean that, and I just assumed that people knew the angel, supernova that my mom is.
It goes without saying.
Right, of course.
She's the best mom ever.
She is the best mom ever, and I just thought that it was implied with being a fabulous New York Jewish mother that at times she could be a little assertive.
Right.
And she heard that and was like, oh, I'm bossy, am I? And I was like, oh, fuck.
Wow.
I have dug myself into quite the hole, sir.
Yeah.
My bad, Mom. Love you. Sorry.
Yeah. You're a boss.
Yes.
You're a boss.
Yeah, she's a boss.
That's a compliment. Anyway, so just to wrap it up with the social media.
Sure.
So I find that it's not part of my sort of natural state to self-promote.
Sure.
So I feel like I'm happiest using social media when I have something to share that isn't just me. I mean, obviously, I'm in a lot or I'm part of a lot of the things that I share. But if in a perfect scenario, everything I share would be a meaningful piece of content that says something either new or supports something that I believe in. And so most of the time I just sort of defer to the people who are really good at it, whose job it is. So like if I scroll through my feed and I see that Stephen Colbert and I don't know who.
Yeah, we're not going to say
all
it
these
better
other
than
people are already sort of offering brilliant, funny commentary,
well-crafted
right. Then
insight.
like great, someone
Right.
did it. There's no way I'm going to do it as well as them. So
But do you ever find, and this is, and what you were referencing before was my little tirade about social media in the last episode. And I find, especially what Twitter will do, they'll aggregate a bunch of people to one area.
Right.
So it'll say, comedians are saying this.
yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
And then I will, because they know that I follow some comedians, and then it'll be 10 people in a row, and it'll be Billy Eichner and Kumal
Right.
and Jesselnick and all these people saying about the exact same thing, and they are out tweeting each other to see who can be more clever about eviscerating Trump.
Right.
And while, like, I'm down for the cause, I just feel as though, like I said before, I'm like, who is this helping other than your ego? That you had, like, a witty, well-crafted take on
I
today's
agree.
news.
Because I think the nature of Twitter and most social media is that you essentially only see what you want to see and already have seen.
Right.
So I don't know how far those tweets are going to reach and sort of just change minds or start conversations in circles of people who need to be having those conversations.
Right.
The only thing I'll say, though, that I think I do like about Twitter is, and I don't know how the algorithm does it, but when someone, let's just use the president for an example, puts up a tweet.
Sure.
I don't know if it's the first person or how it works, but I always like to see the first two or three thread responses.
Me too.
Because if you're going to try and like have your either smart or funny or meaningful response seen, that's the place to do it.
Right.
It's not in your own original tweet, because that's just going to go out to your followers and they're going to regurgitate the same content. Right. I think it should always be the thread.
Yeah, you should reply.
Because that's where other people are going to see it.
And
like
they can
Trump
jump
follower.
in.
Well, right. And you can actually have a conversation.
Right.
I agree. I think to just tweet your own feed and just have your followers sort of agree with you is like,
right.
Is that something? What are you doing? Is the question.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you talked about all this already, so.
No, well, listen, I like for it to be validated with other like-minded people, because inevitably, and listen, I'm a hypocrite because I make money from social media. I'm ever present on the media of social, but I do have my qualms about it as well. But speaking of that, your DMs on Instagram and on Twitter, because of the nature of what you do, and then also your show now sort of invites people's participation. Sure. And I'm sure there are traditional channels for them to submit their stories. But do you find yourself inundated with the craziest stories from like randoms in your direct messages?
So
people that want to be on the show, people that want to be considered.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get a lot of direct messages on Instagram.
Right.
Which I have to go and look at, because you go to your messages and then you have to go to like requests.
Yes.
Right, because if you don't follow someone, they can't send you
the deep dive.
Right, and
the loony bin.
I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, it's not very. You know, what's funny? It's not actually that crazy. I mean, I've never done it, but let's say I get 5 to 20 direct messages a day, maybe.
Right.
At most, probably, and a lot of them are just very friendly. Hey, big fan of the show. Once in a while, it's like, hey, I'm getting married and I'm putting together a video, and could you send a clip? And I always feel bad because I want to do it,
right?
But then I'm like, I don't know.
I don't want to start a trend of this thing.
I always feel bad because I should just do it, but then I have to respond to them. I have to get their email address. I have to make a video. Then I have to email them.
Many steps.
And then I always think like, but then this person's going to have my email, and when their cousin has a birthday, are they going to email me? And am I going to feel like, I don't know. I project this assumed sort of future of doing this now
and
forever.
It's impending doom.
And even though it's probably only going to be this one guy, and it's going to mean so much to him.
My inbox is going to get assaulted with arbitrary emails.
A never-ending email chain of birthday and wedding requests. Anyway,
we all do it.
So I get those occasionally, and here and there I get a weird story. Actually, well, I won't read it, but
read it.
Well, most people know to send emails to the sort of show email account, which is catfishneve@gmail.
Yes.
Which I started after the documentary because I was getting so many weird messages, and still is the sort of, I think, main source for applications, if you will, or through the actual website, catfishcasting.com. But Max gets emails through his website.
Right. Your partner.
Right. Max Joseph, who's my co-host on the show. People who really want to say something will go to his website, and then they'll fill out like the inquiry or the contact me message thing, which then sends him an email. And he recently, once in a while, he'll forward them to me if it's relevant. And he just forwarded one to me that was really meaningful. It was from a girl in I think maybe the Netherlands or somewhere in Europe, who said that her and her dad watched the show a lot, and she had turned him onto it, and he really enjoyed it, and he had been sick. I don't remember if it was cancer or some terminal disease that he'd been struggling with, and a couple months ago, I guess he passed away, and I don't know what prompted her. Maybe the show was on or something, but she saw an episode of the show, and she reached out just to say how meaningful it was that they had shared the show and laughed about things, and how much he had enjoyed it, and it was something towards the end of his life that he really kind of was happy about, that he enjoyed. And that was like such a great message to read, and I'm going to probably reach out and just say thank you for that. And I've heard other versions of sort of similar stories. So that is really nice that someone from somewhere around the world can contact us to tell us something like that is really great.
Oh, it's everything.
So
I've had, and this just speaks to my neuroses, where I've had those like blessed, beautiful moments where you're like, oh my God, what I do makes someone happy, and it's all worth it for that. And I'll get so many lovely messages. And then the one message that says you were funnier when you were fat. And then that after all these just beautiful, reaffirming, affirmations from lovely people that love the work. And then the one troll, I'm like, well, he must be right. Isn't that incredible how there's a part of our brain that can only harp on just the most negative?
Well, that is a different conversation. But I think the biggest issue not the biggest issue, one major issue that civilization and the human sort of spirit is facing right now is overexposure.
Right.
We're not designed to have to deal with and see and absorb a world of pain and suffering and disaster. We're not built to have that much empathy.
Yes.
And so I find lately, like, if I go on social media, which I do, it's just all bad. And
it's all bad.
I can't process all that. And if I even begin to try, or if I say to myself, like, oh, I should tweet this fundraiser link, I should donate to this, I should tell people to care about this. It's like, where does it stop? And if I don't do those things, am I a bad person? If I'm not tweeting about the 15 different terrible things that are happening right now, do I not care about them? But I can't care about all of them, and what can I do? It's just like it's so overwhelming.
Well, because we're so tribal, and in reality, we should only know about 30 people our whole lives.
Right. That's how I feel, and maybe like a dozen animals.
Yes, exactly. I would love to know a couple animals better than I know a few people.
That's why you get a dog, I guess.
Right.
So.
But no, I know, and you also only have so much currency with the people that follow you. You can only sell them a few times, and then you have to have a huge gap in between. Because then they're like, bro, enough of this. Like, you can't just use me following you to sell me whatever, even with the best intentions.
Well, and if they follow you for one thing and you try to give them something else, it's like, oh, no.
Right.
I get that something else from someone else. I don't, like, I'm not coming to you for social causes. I'm coming to you for
do what I like.
Chubby comedy.
Right. So. Exactly. Chubby comedy. That'll be my book. Oh, what's up? Sorry to interrupt y'all, but we got another ad over here. An advertisement. So let's get hectic. You know what? No matter what you do in the bathroom to get ready, Dollar Shave Club has everything you need to look, feel, and smell your best. They have amazing shower stuff, hairstyling products, toothbrushes and toothpaste, and of course, razors and shave supplies. I'll tell you what I'm a huge fan of with this Dollar Shave Club life, the One Wipe Charlies. You can imagine what they're for, but they're in just like their own little packaging. You throw them in your pocket, so if in the middle of the day nature calls, you know that you're going to be fresh as a daisy back there. And let me tell you, there's no better feeling than knowing that you got no worries. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into detail because I'm sure you can imagine what I mean. And right now, you can get ready with an amazing deal on any one of their starter sets. I recommend the Daily Essentials starter set because I love the Amber Lavender Body Cleanser, okay? I like that. That lavender keeps me calm. But you can't go wrong with any of them. Head over to dollarshaveclub.com/curious to pick your own DSC starter set for just $5. After your starter set, products ship at regular price. And make sure you check out their new video too. That's dollarshaveclub.com/curious. dollarshaveclub.com/curious. Okay, y'all, let's get back to the talking. So you're a dancer? You started as a dancer or you studied dance?
Yeah, I think I would say my first passion is a little weird to use because I don't know that I would have thought of it that way then, but the thing that I was first really into was dance.
And since you were a kid?
Yeah, I guess it was 5th grade. A really cool organization called the National Dance Institute, NDI.
Jacques D'Amboise?
That's right.
I was in that as well.
You were? Oh, did we do? Have
New
we
York
figured
Public?
this out or
I
not
don't
yet?
think so.
Oh my god,
we're doing it just now.
So cool. So
Yeah.
NDI came to my school in 5th grade.
Yeah, in New York schools.
Yeah, and they had this once a week after school program, or maybe it was 2 days a week. They would come to your school, and I don't know, for 45 minutes, you'd do a dance class.
Right.
And it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't like formal dance. It was like jazzy kid hip hop.
Choreography,
Yeah.
right.
But I loved it, and I immediately sort of fell in love and had enough energy and big enough smile and enough talent that I was invited to sort of join the more formal troupe, which met on the weekends and put on shows and kind of quickly was then promoted, if you will, to the sort of elite group. It was SWAT. I don't know if you remember this.
I was in SWAT.
Right.
There's a chance that we were at the same weekend
danced
rehearsal.
At LaGuardia.
Yeah, I was there.
We for sure.
100%.
That's crazy.
But there was still a good amount of kids. Like
yeah, but
couple
then I was
dozen.
in celebration.
I wasn't. No one
You
was
didn't make
celebrating
it.
my
You didn't
my
make it
big ass.
celebration. Okay.
No.
So
Did you feel as though maybe you were being scouted a little bit, not just for your ability, but you do have the body type, or at least from here, of like a ballet, like someone who would be
sure.
able to move in that way?
Well, so until I was like 16, I was tiny. I was like a very, very small boy.
Got you.
Much to the concern of like my family, they all thought I was just going to be really, really short.
Like 5'4".
Yeah, I was small. I was like a little
Small, skinny.
swig. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then summer.
Nēv.
Yeah, and then the summer, I was 16. I came back to school, and all of a sudden, I was like,
Flourish.
I flourished.
Yeah.
Blossomed. Anyway, so no, I don't think anyone ever thought I was going to go full tilt into professional dance.
And that's like that.
And I would have needed to have started in middle school anyway.
And your father would have had to be from Moscow and
yeah, I mean, I guess it would have. Looking back, I kind of wish I had been encouraged to go into ballet because it was never really. No one ever said like you should take a ballet. I just wasn't into it. I just liked what we were doing. That was it. But now I realize that I don't think it would have worked out anyway because I'm far too hairy.
You're a swarthy man.
And so even if I wanted to be a professional ballet dancer, that would require
Full body wax.
you got to wear tights and leotards, and a lot of stuff is shirtless.
Right.
And it would be very distracting.
There would be a healthy amount of hair.
Right.
And I'm assuming some matting perhaps.
Yeah, well,
going on.
especially under tights. You don't think about it, but tights are not totally opaque, so you see if there's hair under there, it looks weird.
You would have had to shave your whole body.
I might have to shave, and I don't think I could. I don't think I would have the same gusto and
Who's got time for that?
performative energy if I didn't have. My hair is a big part of my personality. So.
I'm not gonna lie, and it must have been I remember watching Catfish, the doc, when I first saw it, and feeling like some of your shirtless scenes. I was like, look at that guy's chest hair.
That's not even full. I mean, the hair's ever growing and changing.
Sure.
So, I mean, I look back at pictures from 6 years ago and I think like, oh man, I'd kill to have
that coverage,
that little chest hair. Now it's like tripled.
Oh man,
So
hair. I don't know. Hair's one of those tough things. Now, do you get like? 'Cause sometimes my wife will look at me and say, maybe it's time you
Oh, yeah?
did a bit of grooming. Yeah, and I'll be like, all right,
Yeah, I mean, I do my best to keep it under control.
sure,
Armpits frequently.
sure.
And I don't think a lot of people know this, but I think if I mean, I also sweat. Armpit smell, I think, is like at least 50% hair. Right?
Really?
So I find that when I trim my armpit hair really, really short, don't smell hardly at all.
You heard it here first.
So if you have a bit of an armpit smell and you have longer armpit hair, trim it, and I think you'll find a level of freshness you might not have expected.
Are you a no deodorant guy? Are you a natural deodorant guy?
For like the last, I don't know, 5 or so years, I'm actually a Botox guy.
Wow.
Because I sweat a lot in my armpits.
Sure.
And on TV,
Right.
that's the worst.
And you are a fan of a nice collared light blue button-up.
I like a light colored shirt.
And
right.
that is just,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hell.
Yeah, you can't do it. So I get every like 4, 5, 6 months I go in for Botox, and that amazingly completely
Game
eliminates sweat.
Really?
Well, not only the sweat. I mean, the pit stains. You just ruin your clothes. It's just the worst. It's just uncomfortable. I mean, I'm actually sweating a little bit now, barely, but I can feel it's almost time for another. Although now there's a procedure where I think they can actually just like
remove the sweat glands.
Something, right?
And you don't find that you then sweat from like your tongue or from your eyes, some random place you should never sweat from. It's redistributed.
No weird thing. My feet get hot. I am hot. I run hot.
Right, me too.
So I stopped wearing underwear years ago.
Good for you.
It's just
just live.
Like a layer of. I mean, that midsection is a zone for me. That's a hot zone. So
sure.
I need it to be as free and breezy as possible.
Well, and we'll get to this in a bit, but recently you and I were on a unintentional beach vacation together, and I was lucky enough to see you with your shirt off, and it seemed like you had hair in all the right places. Like chest, great. No shoulder hair, not that I saw, nothing on the back seas, and that's huge. Like have hair where you're supposed to.
I have light growth on shoulders and center back, manageable. It's increasing. I think I'm going to have hair coming.
It happens
forever, but it's manageable. Yeah.
I have and the Botox sounds great. And my whole thing is if you don't want to wear deodorant and you don't smell, God bless.
Right.
But if you do, you have broken the social contract. And I am like, and I tried. I did the Burt's Bees natural deodorant.
Have you done prescription? That's a thing, right? Like prescription strength deodorant?
Well, I mean, I sweat as much as the next guy. But like, I've never had too many qualms with it. And so, but I wanted to go the natural route. I heard all the talk of that it could cause cancer, blah, blah, blah. So I tried these natural things, and I just smelled like the bad side of a health store. Like it was too much, and I went back to my right guard or my speed stick or whatever it is. Never been happy.
Old Spice.
Just do it.
It works.
Enough.
It does.
Because there are those same people who are like, I have a really clean diet, and I shower every morning, and I don't. And I'm like, my guy, you stink. I don't care what you say.
I know. Well, fortunately for me, it's just right. I don't know why the armpits are the sweat gland that smells.
Yeah,
but I do think the armpit hair has a lot to do with it.
All right. Well,
anyway,
you heard it here first. So you're a dancer. You never considered going into it professionally.
No. You know what? I have a very. There's one thing that I kind of pride myself is that I'm realistic and honest with myself. So I knew then, in high school, that there were people who wanted it way more than me.
Right.
And while I might have been able to pursue a career in dance, I don't know what version of a career, I saw the passion of people who were committed to pursuing that, and I was like,
wasn't you.
I don't have that, right? So if I know it's hard for people who have that, and I don't even have that, like I'm not who am I kidding?
Right.
And that's the same thing that happened to me with acting, because I was lightly in the drama department, at summer camp. I was in The Wizard of Oz. I enjoyed it. But after the Catfish documentary came out, this really wonderful, very high profile talent manager, picked me up and was like, if you're interested in being on screen, I think you've got it.
Sure.
And I can get you the right auditions, and we can get you into some stuff. And I was like, okay.
Why not?
I'll give it a try.
You don't say no to that.
Right.
Right.
And I went on one audition and immediately knew, nope.
No, not for me.
Not for me.
Yeah, I don't need this level of rejection in my life.
It wasn't even the rejection. It was, that's a funny story.
Please.
So I got sent out for an audition. At the time, I didn't realize, there's small parts, and then there's not small parts.
Sure.
I just assumed if there was anything I was going out for, it was a tiny, insignificant thing.
Right.
Well, little did I know, my manager had, because of her reputation, booked me an audition for I don't know if you've seen Mr. Popper's Penguins.
I've heard good things.
Well,
Jim Carrey?
Right, it was a Jim Carrey film.
Sure.
Where somehow dozens and dozens of penguins end up being shipped to his apartment in New York City. Anyway, and I went out for the role of the doorman. Which, when you hear it, you're like, oh, a doorman.
Fairly innocuous.
No. This is multiple scenes.
Jesus.
The comedic counterpart to Jim Carrey, the guy who's constantly backing, a big part of the film.
Something like J.B. Smoove would play.
Exactly.
Right.
Like a serious character actor.
Gotcha.
With real chops.
Yes.
Okay.
A funny factor.
Right. And this was before I was living in Los Angeles, so I was staying at a hotel, and I had stayed at this hotel a few times, and I'd actually become friendly with the concierge, this lovely lady, Barbara, and so I think, okay, I gotta go in for this audition as a doorman. I should get a doorman uniform.
Sure. Commit.
So, yeah, right, because
Yeah.
I know I don't have the experience as an actor, but at least if I can look the part.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
And I like costumes. I'm a big dress-up guy.
Suit up and show up.
So I borrowed a bellhop or whatever it was uniform.
Gotcha.
The whole thing with the hat. And I go to this audition, and I could tell right away when I walked in they were shocked.
But pleasantly shocked?
I don't know. I think that they were a little bit we squeezed this guy in. We've never heard. He's a known name, and we're probably at interview. They've probably been auditioning, like you said, major
Tracy
names.
Morgan.
Right.
Heavy hitters.
Who is this skinny, no-name, weird
From
kid
a documentary.
right. In a full valet uniform, right? And I'd love to see the tape, although I'm sure I would cringe, but I was terrible. Just
Amazing.
terrible. I'd never done it. I just was awful. And I left, and I went into the bathroom, and I was started to change, and this, it's almost difficult even to say it, but I for better or worse, said to myself, I could do better. So I went back in.
God bless you.
And I said, guys, I'm sorry. And at this point, they're probably I probably interrupted them laughing or talking about how I can't believe that kid. Who was that? Is that for real? And
That's
and I think I
amazing.
did it again, just as bad.
And they let you.
They did. They were very sweet.
Accommodating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I left that audition knowing that total bust.
You didn't ask for feedback from your manager?
I didn't even know that. Oh, well, this is the hilarious part. So the next day, I get the phone call from my manager, and she says, so, I heard from the casting team, and they don't think you're ready for this, and blah, blah, blah. And I said to her, I was like, listen, no more. I'm not doing this. It's
done.
not for me. I appreciate the effort, but moving on. Let's focus on this TV show thing, which is now obviously Catfish. But that was that, and it's funny. The two probably most embarrassing moments that I can recall are that audition, and one years and years before when I don't know why, but I'd gone to, I guess, maybe get an agent.
Okay.
I guess I thought at the time that maybe
It's what people do.
I don't know, but I don't know what prompted that. I was in New York. Oh, maybe because I joined as a little musical theater company, not company, but troupe, kids thing called City Lights, and I'd been in a show and felt like maybe I'd get into that a little bit more. Anyway, and I went, and I didn't know what like prepare a monologue meant.
Sure.
Because I just had no idea.
Yeah.
Now I mean, and if you don't know what that means, if you're listening, it's like usually you choose a long passage from a play or a film.
Yeah.
That is emotional or funny or meaningful, and
it's just you.
Yeah, it's a couple minutes, and you just sort of say it like you're telling a story.
Right.
I didn't know that I should do that.
Jesus.
So when they said, "Okay, what do you have prepared?" This is like I'm so I wish you could see how embarrassed I am.
Ugh.
I had been encouraged by my dad, who thinks I'm hilarious, to do my Austin Powers impression.
Rough. I hope you haven't forgiven your dad for this.
Which I'd been told was pretty good.
It's hilarious.
But obviously, like, only by friends and family.
Right.
So I go into this awkward, weird, like, Austin Powers impression, and I'm, like, going up to the front desk lady, like, asking her if she thinks I'm... it was, like, it was so humiliating.
You had the best Austin Powers impression of the Schulman family.
Exactly.
Solid.
And I humiliated myself then. So those two experiences, I think, really solidified my departure from on-camera sort of acting, if you will.
So 2 stories. First one is Billy Bob Thornton was recently on Marin on his pod, and his first foray into acting was a monologue, auditioning for acting class, where he loosely improvised a reimagined version of Othello for 45 minutes. And 30 minutes in, the teacher said, "Is there more to this?" And he's like, "Probably only 20, 25. And he was like, "You realize there's other people here." But of course it was Billy Bob Thornton, so he actually was told that it was quite good. Huh. And now thank God we have Billy Bob Thornton.
Right.
But secondly, we're about to hit mad bases that we've already touched. One of my worst audition experiences was going in for just an interview because the creators of the show and the writers, producers, directors wanted to meet me, get a vibe for who I was. It was a show that was on Stars with Jeffrey Dean Morgan to play a young Jewish mob boss son person in Miami in the 40s.
I could see that.
They said dress appropriately for the time.
Right.
So I dress in a slightly tight-fitting button-up shirt, not a lot of breathing room in that shirt, a thicker fabric. And I'm sitting there and we're talking, and the room is hot. Maybe it's not hot, but I'm hot.
Sure.
So we're talking, 10 minutes goes by, and I'm sweating. I got pit stains, but I'll just do the move of I'll keep my elbows tight. I won't reveal the stains. I'm sure it'll be fine. 20 minutes, these stains are getting bigger, for sure. 45 minutes passes. I've been sitting there. I've made no mention. They've made no mention.
Sure.
I walk into the bathroom. My shirt to my waist is soaked. Oof. And so I'm talking like it looked like I went swimming except for one dry stripe down my midsection. It was so mortifying. Wow. Now, then I was 23 and so terrified. I just wanted a part. Now at 31, I'd be like, "Can you fucking believe this, guys?" Right. I know. Like I am schwitzing. Like I would just draw attention to it, but I was so terrified to do anything wrong.
Did the part happen?
I did not. They brought me back, thankfully, to allow me to audition to prove to them that I wasn't right for the part. But I'll never forget that. It
really
happens.
Screw you up.
So in doing something like, I feel like you've probably talked about the CATFISH experience so much, but what I'm most interested in doing the doc and now the TV show for a bunch of seasons, do you have any insight into what you think the psychology is of the typical catfish, or does it just run the gamut of different personalities?
So the catfish, as in the
person who's doing it,
making things up or lying.
Yes.
Okay. I do. God, I mean, there's a lot in that. But if I just want to quickly dive in, I think that boredom plays a big part. I think that comparison and jealousy also. You know, we've become so aware of everyone,
Right.
but specifically people well beyond our sort of physical social circle, that we now are constantly forced or sort of encouraged to see what other people do and how other people live and what their lives look like, and how fit they are and how much fun they're having and all the vacations they're going on. And so when you compare yourself to that, it takes what's, I think, already a baseline of insecurity and unhappiness that a lot of young people feel, because, you know, naturally when you're younger, you don't know who you are yet. You don't know what you're doing with your life. There's a lot of
Such a tough
pressure.
time.
You're trying to get a job or go to school, and you're up against financial and social, you know, obstacles. And so that as a base, then kind of coupled with the awareness of all these other people whose lives seem to be much, much better than yours, you know, and then add in a sprinkle of just a lot of free time, because you either can't, maybe you don't have a full-time job, or maybe there's not a lot to do where you live, and you get this sort of cocktail of okay, well, what do I do that doesn't cost money, that I can do from home, and that will maybe make me feel a little bit less shitty.
Live a fantasy life.
Right. And so you create a fantasy. And I think in a weird way, the internet allows for the adult imagination to run wild in a way that could be really helpful, and I think is actually really meaningful. I mean, I know so many people who do make alter egos, who have sort of stage profiles, if you will, or
Right.
you know, second profiles that they use to express a certain side of them. And that's great. But if you're essentially using it as an escape from who you really are and as a fantasy to experience the world through someone else, there are pitfalls. And one of them is meeting someone else who then genuinely falls in love with that creation, and then how do you navigate your way in and out or around their feelings when you just made this for your own feelings.
Sure.
That seems to be the theme in a lot of these, is like, oh, well, I just made this profile because I wanted to know what it would feel like to be popular and good looking. I wanted to know what it would feel like to get attention from strangers, good attention, right? Because we're all so used to negative. Well, we're not all so used to it, but a lot of young people who may not be conventionally attractive, or you were overweight.
Oh my God.
Right. So you probably thought countless times, like, God, I wish I had that body.
I think even as a kid, in my first foray into the internet at 12 years old and being on AOL and chat rooms, that as soon as I saw the power of when someone would hit you with the age-old age,
Right.
sex, location, and I could be like 23 male Malibu when I was like
Right.
12 fat Lower East Side of Manhattan.
Well,
like,
Lower East Side's still cool.
not bad. It's gotten better since then.
Yeah.
Got another ad for the podcast, 'cause we successful as shit. Let me ask you guys something. Have you ever wanted to have a better teeth brushing experience? Well, Quip's here to help, because it was designed to make brushing your teeth more simple, affordable, and even enjoyable, because it's got a built-in 2-minute timer into the actual toothbrush that pulses every 30 seconds to remind you when to switch sides. It helps guides a full and even clean. So if you short it, if you cheat it, if that timer's still going, you're not as clean as you could be. And it has sensitive sonic vibrations, gentle enough on your sensitive gums, because those electric toothbrushes can be a little too abrasive sometimes. You know what I'm saying? And my gums are like me, sensitive. But you know what I love the most about my Quip toothbrush is every 3 months, a new brush head comes in the mail. Takes all the guesswork out of things. That's why I love it. Look, I love Quip. That's why they're backed by over 20,000 dental professionals. Quip starts at just $25. And if you go to getquip.com/curious right now, you get your first refill pack for free with a Quip electric toothbrush. That's your first refill pack free at getquip.com/curious. Do you think there's a power aspect too, because even in the doc, and we've also seen it on the show, where people will start creating not only a persona but then a world, multiple accounts. Now they're sort of like manipulating someone's entire existence.
I do. I think that there's a lot of people feel like they have very little control in their lives, right? I mean, most people don't own their home. They don't own their car. You know, you lease a car, or maybe you own whatever. That's a silly example, but you don't own your home. Your job is, you know, fingers crossed, like you can keep it.
Right.
You know, your medical bills, your credit card debts, like everything is closing in on you all the time. Where can you find one sort of thing that's your own that makes you feel important,
Right.
and in control? And I think that these profiles is one version of that. I think even if you're not making a fake profile, even if you're just using social media, sort of like you described earlier, as a place to sound off and just be recognized for either your sense of humor or your, you know, political awareness or whatever, like it gives you a sense that you have a platform where you exist that is yours. And I think that's why everyone in the world seems to want to have their own Facebook page. It's my space. I'm in control.
Curate it the way I want.
And that's important. I mean, it is important to have that.
Right.
It's sad to some extent that we've somewhat discouraged people from having that in their physical worlds and lives.
Right.
In the form of painting or a hobby of some kind, or even making puzzles. I mean, it used to be your cooking, whatever, like
an expression.
Yeah, and an expression that you could share. You know, so like if you're a young person and maybe you used to be much more likely to join a bowling league, and now it's like, well, that costs money and I have to get there, and I'm not a great bowler.
Right.
So
And
I could spend 6 hours a week doing that, or I could spend 60 hours a week doing this, which, you know, is easier.
Yes.
So that's one of the sort of things about social media that, like I said before, it can be a great thing, but if you're lazy about it and you're using it instead of pushing yourself to do things. I mean, I say it all the time. I need a physical creative outlet, and I don't have one right now. I have in the past. Like I used to take photos a lot, and I used to post them on this website, and every day I was like putting up albums, and it made me feel great and like very satisfying.
Accomplished.
Yeah, just to have something that you're doing once a day that you can sort of look at and be like, I did that.
Right.
Now, most people say like, oh, I posted on my Instagram. I did that.
Right. A witty caption.
Yeah. And I don't disagree that that is a thing.
There's some merit, but not.
I just think that because so many other people are doing that every day, it's like it's worth less.
But it's such a control factor because people control and design the way in which you view them through their page and the way that it's run. And yet, and I'm fascinated by the people that Facetune, because besides the fact that in 9 out of 10 cases you can tell. Yeah. And I'm like, do we all have to play around like you haven't severely augmented this photo? But more so I want to be like, but you live out there. So while I appreciate that you wanted to make your waist smaller or whatever, I'd love to too. Like we all know you just as like the wonderful human shaped person that you are. Right. And you know, you can't do that in your sort of comings and goings of life. One thing you said before that I found interesting, do you find that it's more the case with the catfish that they actually don't have feelings for the other person? It's just they get stuck in this thing that they can't get out of?
It's interesting.
Because it's presented as though you'd think that it was like, I really loved you, but I didn't. The movie version would be, I loved you, but I didn't have the confidence, and so I projected this fake thing, and I'm sorry. But it sounds like you're kind of saying, like, no, it actually is less about that.
I don't know. It's tough because the feelings on the show, they don't get buried, but I don't. From my own experience, I've been in a number of long-term, meaningful relationships.
Yes.
And each time I kind of get out of one of those and I meet and get involved with someone else, I realize, wow, the feelings I have now are either more intense or more clear to me, what I really want or need or like. And I think it takes a series of relationships and 8 years of your life to sort of figure out and know when you really do love someone, or what it means to have your heart broken. Or I think the only way to learn those things is to go through them. Right. And so because a lot of the people on our show are younger, and in many cases this is their first, long-term relationship in terms of just more than a few months.
Right.
I don't think they know what their feelings are. And because I think the relationship is born out of a need
to project a certain air.
Yeah, well, it's relationships, I think, whether they're virtual or physical, all sort of, are built on the same essential platform, right? Like, I'm attracted to you. You make me smile, or you make me feel good. I enjoy talking, spending time together, whatever. You're my friend. Let's hang out more, and then all of a sudden, you're kind of in a relationship.
Right.
Online, it's a little different because you're able to assess and control the sort of in and out, the
you can project the air. Like that's the exhausting part of when you're young, especially, right? It's like,
Yeah.
And that's why there's the boring old colloquialism of like, be yourself. Because inevitably, even if you get someone to fall in love with this cool projected air that you've now refined or honed,
Right.
It will become exhausting. You will become your real self eventually. And if they're not into that person, you're screwed. And also the magic, and I'm sure you can speak to this, the magic of when you find your person is where you become more comfortable and, less quote unquote attractive than you've ever felt because you're just being yourself. And that person still likes you. You're like, oh
Right.
my God, you like this? Like, I only show this to like my best friend. And like,
Well, yeah, I agree with all of that. And it kind of, I was able to clarify what I was trying to say earlier,
Sure.
which is that there's a big difference between when you're ready to be in a
vulnerable.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. I don't want to belittle internet relationships for young people. But when you're in a real life partner, meaningful relationship, there's a difference between that and between what I think we see on the show a lot. Because what I've realized is that the relationships on the show are built on each party separately wanting to have someone that's there, some connection with someone who's detached from their lives, who's not a part of their circle, who doesn't know them and their friends and their family, who doesn't know their past, who doesn't even necessarily know what they look like. It's this safe, secret, like separate thing that only they have.
Right.
And I think there's a need for that because our lives have all become so public, and we share everything, and we're expected to share everything and present ourselves in this great light all the time and judge ourselves based on likes and followers and all this stuff. So I think I've seen a trend of people who are desperately now trying to have something outside of that doesn't exist in the public sphere, their
Arena.
own private thing. And so that thing they want that thing to be
Perfect.
what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's this exactly. I don't know what you'd call it, but
It's a utopia. They've created their
right.
own.
And so when you actually meet that person and your two worlds actually collide, and then you have to figure out like, okay, well, so now that we've met in person and we've addressed the fact that I'm not exactly what you expected and you're not exactly what I expected, and we actually do live kind of far away, all of the issues that
The
come
realities
with
of life
sort of very quickly dissolve the magic.
It erodes the false foundation in which it was built.
I mean, and well, it clarifies what you were actually doing.
Yes.
So it immediately shines a light on the fact that you're not actually in love with this person. You're in love with that little tiny circle on your pie chart where you guys both packed all of your hopes and dreams.
Right.
Into the future you would love to have if and when you can and you meet the actual right person. But you're not actually the right people for each other.
Right.
But you just happen to have an overlap in this sort of fantasy dream that you both share.
Do you know I was catfished, or at least I think I was?
Doesn't surprise me.
It happens, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people. All I know is that like during my late teens, early 20s, there was a person who I would text, and I don't know how she got my number, but her setup was I think she worked for a company that I worked for, like some network, got my info
Yeah.
and said we had met at the party, and then it became, and I don't know if this is a
Was
trait
this
of
before or after your show?
after my show,
Okay.
I was acting, like, had a little bit of a persona or whatever. And there was sort of like this, insidious isn't the right word, but she just, all of a sudden, it just seemed like this person who I'd always known, like had this,
I know how that feels, yeah.
yeah, this familiarity, right? And then I remember like she would send me pictures, but they seemed sort of like fully dressed, nothing like scantily clad about them, or just like, hey, eating ramen at this place, yum. Like, and it was just like a lovely looking girl who, and then I slowly but surely, and then we talked on the phone a few times, and like she was just dope and into hip hop and like this cool New York girl. But slowly but surely, when I would find myself in New York and I would try to see her, it would fall through, and it just didn't work till finally I got hip to the fact that like something's off here, and then the photos didn't quite look like they came from her phone, that they might have been stolen from another profile.
Okay.
But I didn't know, but only years later did it.
But so was there ever a resolution?
No, I just stopped. I was like, this is weird, and I don't understand why I can never see you. And like, I just want to
still
get
have her
coffee.
info?
No, why? I see the wheels turning.
I'd love to find out who it was.
Oh my God. I don't. Yeah, it was like it's, yeah. I'll say this to you. I'll probably cut this part out of the pod. But I remember this, that I was in New York and I was like, whatever, 20 years old. And I was like, oh, I'd love some pot in the city, some weed, but I can't. I flew here, like New York, it's tough to find. She's like, oh, I have a friend who can hook you up. And so I met this girl at a Duane Reade in like Midtown, and she was a very nice girl. She looked like a lot of people that have been on Catfish.
It may have been her.
I think it was her. And she didn't act like it was her, and like gave me, like $30 worth of pot. It was very nice. And I was like, hey, it was great. Like, thank you so much. And then like later on, I texted this girl and was like, yo, your friend's awesome. Thanks for hooking it up. She's like, oh, she liked you so much. And I was like, I bet she did. But
Does she have a second number to organize that meetup? Did she?
or maybe I did it through her.
Right.
I don't know.
Ah.
She's like, oh, she'll meet you at the Duane Reade at
Right,
5:30.
right.
Like, I don't know. But
So yeah, I think for your own satisfaction, you should just assume that was her.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you can kind of get your closure, which is something I know a lot of people want.
Finally.
Right. So you met her, and she was very lovely. And,
Lovely.
Yeah.
So interestingly, we're talking about the character type of the catfish, but do you find that there's a commonality in the fish, in the one that's being tricked?
That's funny. No one ever called them the fish.
Well, that's like
We
a
called
poker
them the
term, right?
hopeful. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
card
yeah.
term. Yeah, which I only recently learned. And it is usually the person who is most likely to be sort of taken, right? Like
Yes,
right, some
the
fish is
weakest
like a
at the
weakest,
table.
right? Exactly. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that the sort of hopefuls or the victims, whatever you want to call them, they all have a lot of the same things in common, but not only so much as we all have them in common, right? Which is that like they want to be loved and they want to feel like they matter and that someone cares about them.
And to a certain extent, they're ignoring some signs in the beginning. Yes.
Right. I mean, I think one thing that both the doc to some extent, but even more so the show, doesn't simply have time to illustrate is the trickle effect of getting into these relationships, right? Because we come in and we get the summary, like, oh my God, you've been talking for 2 years and you've never this or that, and they haven't FaceTimed you, and they have all these excuses. And when you put it all together on a one page, you realize, yeah, there's a lot of red flags. But when you're living it day by day, and it starts with just like a couple weeks of friendly messaging on Facebook because you have a mutual friend, and then you start texting, and then all of a sudden you're on the phone and they're telling you every day these things about their lives. The thought to then go back and be like, wow, I wonder if any of that is true, or could they have been lying about all these things, like seems very impossible. Like, no, I've been talking to them so much, all these, like every day they text me, and you don't get that in the summary. You know what I mean? It's hard to illustrate the emotional foundation that gets built when you talk to someone every day for a week, even just a couple days. I mean, like, I remember when I first met Laura, after our first date, I went away for a week to film an episode, and even just over the course of that week, I've never had an intense connection like over the phone with someone before, but we were talking on the phone at night for hours and texting all day. And
that's love.
Even into that first week, I felt more like connected to her than I had felt to someone in a long time.
Yeah.
And that can happen really fast. If you click, you know, and so I think you forget that these people clicked.
Right.
They have this incredible rapport. They have this fun, affectionate correspondence for months or years that you can't, forget about.
And healthy or not, we were all blind in love in the beginning. It's a hysterical blindness and it can be in the best way. I mean, it's what
totally.
I mean, Shakespeare wrote about it. I mean, it's just that moment clicks, and then slowly but surely, 3 to 6 months in, you're like, God, you chew loud, or whatever.
Sure. Well,
which is what my wife tells me.
And then there's an interesting thing that also happens a lot, which is that at a certain point, the hopeful begins to ask some questions or expect certain things, like, why haven't we met up? We've tried to meet up. You always have an excuse. Or, why can't we FaceTime? I know your camera's been broken, but like I sent you, whatever.
Right.
And they get to a point where they might start to push a little bit. And frequently, and I don't think this is intentional, it's sort of weirdly this subconscious thing that happens, but the catfish will often respond with a similar answer, which is, well, don't you trust me? And they'll turn it around and they'll make the person asking the very logical question feel bad, as if they're questioning.
They betrayed the relationship.
Right. How could you say
trust.
that? Right. I thought we had something. Yeah. Now you're questioning it, and I don't even. How could you not believe me? And they weirdly manipulate the other person into
turn it around
feeling
on
bad about questioning that they might not be telling them the truth.
Right.
And so that's another interesting thing that I don't think is intentional and by design, but it just sort of happens because it's the only way to discourage what is an inevitable curiosity.
Them going further.
Right.
And if Catfish wasn't on MTV and it was on HBO or something where you could be, you didn't have to worry about the standards of network television standards and practices, would it be even juicier? Would there be certain things you would leave in that you've had to cut or not?
I think so. I think one of the things we pushed for a while until we decided it wasn't worth pushing anymore was, I don't know if the right word is portraiture, but we wanted to be able to show both sides of the story as more. We wanted to be able to spend a few minutes and just watch the catfish get up at 4:30 in the morning to drive an hour to the supermarket where they stock shelves for 10 hours,
right,
and then go home, stop at McDonald's on the way through, getting their food. And like, we wanted to be able to see that their lives are lacking.
Yes.
And that they're unhappy or that they're isolated or that they're depressed. We wanted to be able to show their life outside of the relationship because we felt like that's an important part of why they're in this relationship. Why are they lying, or why are they so willingly being lied to? Well, maybe it's because they live in the basement of their parents' home and it smells terrible, and and their 6 older brothers make fun of them all the time because they're overweight. Like, that's important.
Right.
But
it
there
illustrates
isn't really
their life.
time for it. And Okay, so we kind of gave up with that. We wanted to be able to see them talking more. Like one of the things that frustrates us is we come into these people's lives. They've been talking every day for months or years. I want to see them talking, right? I want to see them on the phone with each other because they tell us that they have these great conversations, but what does it look like?
Yeah.
And we try to do it, but it's funny because it doesn't look like a lot.
Yes.
It's really not that meaningful when you try and capture it. It's like trying to find the end of a rainbow. Like it doesn't. The rainbow exists, and that relationship is that
There's a
it's
magic.
There. But when you actually try to understand what
Encapsulate
it kind of evaporates
Sure.
into the mist. So
well, because there's those moments that you can't quite articulate in any relationship
Right.
where you're like, oh, she did this thing, and like no one's ever done that for me. And to anyone else, it could be like, what? Like she like got you food and then
Right.
like let you watch your favorite show,
Right.
and like, no, you don't understand.
and when the cameras are rolling, obviously you lose a little bit of whatever the authenticity and magic was to begin with.
right.
So those are one thing. And then, there are things that we haven't been able to show. And I don't know if it would change on a different network, just about, in some cases, like the extremely difficult circumstances of people's lives.
Sure.
Where they've been mistreated or gone through things that we can't talk about because it
Implicates other
right,
people.
Yeah, exactly.
And then obviously I'm not quite sure how much you talk about in the show about like sexting and all that stuff that goes on. You guys talk about it because I'm sure there's a lot of that.
I mean, we always ask, like, so do you sext?
Right.
And I don't think anyone really lies to us about it, but it doesn't happen as much as it could.
Because it's more emotional.
These relationships are not about physicality.
Right.
So usually it's like, oh man, if I were there, I would do this. But it's never like
Yeah.
that graphic.
Digging in.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
no.
We had met before, and
You sat behind me at
I sat in front of you.
Or in front of me.
And you guys threw popcorn on my wife and I, which I loved. In the best way. It was
You don't know it was us, but it may have been.
I suspected.
Yeah.
It was a couple kernels, but it was more of like a how are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a light showering. It was almost like a post-wedding ceremony, I think.
It was very cute.
Lovely.
It's a bit of an olive branch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then, funny enough, last month, my wife and I are on vacation with our friends in Maui, and we go into a lovely hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And I turn around, and who do I see? Nēv checking in with his
Right.
wife.
We were checking in.
And his daughter and beautiful family. And you were in an interesting moment.
That was tough.
I bet. Fuck.
So we flew to Hawaii essentially to escape what had just recently happened, which was I think 2 days earlier, a girl who had been on CATFISH in 2015 had posted some videos on YouTube saying that during the filming I had been wildly inappropriate with her and overly flirtatious and said some vulgar sexual things to her and tried to get her to have sex with me and any number of things of that nature. And because, something like that would be a serious infraction and would warrant, certainly an investigation and perhaps some repercussions.
Of course.
MTV did what I think they had to do, which was suspend production and look into it.
And in this day and age, they acted, it seems as though swiftly. Like they had to make a big...
Yeah, I mean, I looking back, do I think there was a slightly less aggressive version?
Of course.
That could have been taken? Sure. But there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, this is a serious thing. If this happened, we need to find out, and that's what we're going to do. But regardless of that, what I had just gone through was essentially, 48 hours of press who didn't really bother to look into the situation, but simply headlines, Nēv, sexual misconduct, CATFISH suspended.
Because in this day and age, to be accused is to be guilty, is to be indicted, right. And you've got the scarlet letter right away.
Right. And I'm not a squeaky clean guy. I've made some mistakes in the past, of which I've been transparent about and learned from and apologized when appropriate. But this was particularly upsetting because it was not true.
Right.
I remembered very clearly this girl in the episode, and the things she was saying were just so not only not true, but also so far out of my realm of the character of who I am.
Yes.
That anyone who knows me, who took the time to actually listen to what she said, would immediately tell you like, oh no, there's no way. There's no way Nēv would say those things.
Right.
So it was so exaggerated and absurd. But, you know, so I became one of an unfortunate list of people who is sort of labeled a pervert or gross or disgusting or just sort of disrespectful and like you say, is sort of assumed guilty.
And when do you get the call? When is it first introduced that this is going on?
Well, the most frustrating thing about it was that it actually, I don't know, but I think I actually found out first. So Laura got a direct message on Instagram from someone who said, "Hey, your husband's a creep. Like, I can't believe you let him near your daughter." Some
Jesus.
terrible message. And then she had screenshotted, whoever sent Laura the message, the video and said, like, "Have you seen this?" And so Laura was like, "What is this?" And I went, watched the video.
Of course.
And then immediately, without thinking, I don't know what I would have done differently now, sent it to the producer of the show and said, like, "Oh man, I don't know what do we need to do anything? This is so crazy. Like, this girl's posted this video." And I, of course, immediately was aware that, like, if and when the right person sees this, like, it's going to get press, right? Because
right.
Understandably, if someone's making a claim against a public figure, and especially a woman against a man, like, people are going to notice.
It's going to be breaking news.
Right. And I knew it was a sort of ticking time bomb. Eventually, it's going to come out. Anyway, so obviously it then trickled up to MTV, and, you know, they made a statement saying we're going to look into it.
Did they tell you this before they made their statement?
I mean, we knew something was going to happen and that they were going to say something. I don't know that we knew that they were going to necessarily suspend production, but...
And in moments like this, isn't it always slightly revealing of, like, and they always say, like, in crisis, your true friends will show themselves. Like, I'm sure, and I've gone through this just in, like, when a show is, it's not comparable in any way, but, like, if a show is canceled or whatever, like, I'm sure you were like, I'm such good friends with all those execs. Like, they couldn't have at least called me. Like, they immediately go into corporate mode of, like,
right.
We must separate. Sorry, you can read it on The Hollywood Reporter like everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually it's hard now, or it was hard then, to sort of understand what was going on for them in the corporate side of things. There was initially some communication with me about, like, okay, well, how do you want to deal with this? Let's come up with a statement. And then I think they realized that for their sake and actually for mine too, in terms to best protect their sort of separation from me, like, we actually need to handle this separately and not involve Nēv, and
sure,
and we had to, you know,
to not seem like there's a bias,
right? There's no kind of, we're not in cahoots together. Like,
of course,
we're going to very seriously separate from him and let it be known that we're investigating him. And
yeah,
anyway, I think that now looking back, they did a great job. In the moment, I was very frustrated and I was confused. Why aren't they communicating with me? Why would they suspend the show when there's never been a complaint like this before? It's not like it's a male-dominated, you know, production at all. In fact, almost all of our producers are female. Right. It's not like if a girl had been on the show before, she wouldn't have felt comfortable.
Yeah, there's nothing
I'm
to
not
support
the boss.
this
It's just not
claim.
right. It's not the environment where I would be able to do that, surrounded by all these people and the camera's always rolling. It's such an outlandish,
of course,
whatever. But I understood. So they very quickly got investigation to happen. Everyone participated from past and present, including myself, and they went through all the raw footage, comparing it to the timeline of the girls' claims, which clearly, you know, didn't match.
Right.
And then took their time to make sure everything had been gone through and looked at, and timed their announcement with what I'm sure was a lot of consideration and scheduling and budget in terms of putting production back in and continuing with the show. I mean, you know, a lot of stuff had to happen that while for me, I was waiting, counting the seconds for them to say, hey, it's all good. Nēv's not a creep.
Right.
And I wanted them to do it sooner. What I wasn't really thinking was the bigger picture and moving forward with the show and how they wanted to make sure they really were thorough and didn't rush. And they did. And they did a great job.
Curious with Josh Peck is brought to you by the wondrous new Showtime original series Kidding, starring Golden Globe winner Jim Carrey. Carrey plays Jeff Pickles, a children's television icon and a force for good in an often cruel world. As his family life starts to unravel, Jeff's sanity is put to the ultimate test. Will he be able to keep it together? Well, catch the series premiere of Kidding Sunday, September 9th at 10 p.m., following the season premiere of Shameless, only on Showtime. Download the Showtime app and start your free trial now. So when you get the call or you see that the announcement has then happened, first of all, who reaches out immediately?
Well, we knew it was going to happen because we'd been in touch with MTV's, business affairs and press department.
I mean, are you afraid to go outside in that moment?
Well, I mean, it was interesting. I learned a lot in the last month.
Yeah.
About myself, about my friends and family, my fans, and I also almost completely sort of left social media.
Sure.
Which I think was great in a weird way, because you do feel that constant pressure, like we were saying before, to post, and then when you stop and you really can't, I could have been, I guess, but I chose to not post anything for about a month. Like any addiction, it kind of gets better, right? Like there's a little bit at the beginning where you're like, oh man, and then you kind of like, I guess it doesn't really matter, and then all of a sudden you're not even thinking about it. It was kind of liberating and lovely.
Right, you don't miss it.
And then you get to come back really fresh and just decide, what am I doing this for and why, and is it making me happy, or is it just some burden? Anyway, all that aside. So the other thing that I learned, like you say, about your friends is interesting, because on one hand, I don't know, I think some people reached out and were like, you're my friend, this is bullshit,
right.
What can I do? How can I help? And a lot of girl friends and former female colleagues reached out to say, this is crazy.
Do you need a character witness?
Right. Can I write something or to offer some testimony or something? And some did, and that was really helpful. I didn't need it, but that was nice. But also, it's interesting because I'm now able to say that what I didn't realize at the time was partly because of the sort of sensitive nature of the situation. I didn't sort of include anybody. I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't really filling people in with the day-to-day grind and phone calls and updates. Of
course. So you're doing it alone.
Well, I had my wife, but we were really
protected.
We were just overwhelmed with the frustration and stress and confusion and just negativity of the situation. Because not only was it my reputation and the my career, but all these other projects that people won't know about now that I had been setting up and working on for years that were literally both right about to happen went away.
Jesus.
And they might kind of come back, maybe not, we'll see. But timing wise, it couldn't have been a worse moment. Yeah.
And in that moment, are you are you talking to God, being like, I'm a good dude? I mean, I don't know what your belief is, but I'm a good person. I don't deserve this.
Well, no, it's weird. You go through for me at least, a few things. First I went through do I deserve this?
Right.
Is this karma?
Yes.
Have I made too many mistakes in the past? Have I hurt people in the past? Is this some sort of weird cosmic fate thing that's setting me back for a reason?
Because we've all, to a certain extent, when you see all these things happen, any guy, and I can only speak for myself, will investigate his old relationships and say, where did I act less than chivalrous?
Sure.
Or was I not emotionally sensitive to the person that I was in a relationship with?
And I've had a few moments where I was out at a bar or at a party, met a girl, things were going well, and then I maybe took it a little too far, and they said, "Hey, that's not cool," and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry."
Of course.
In the moment, obviously, I recognized, appreciated, respected, and but like that could come back. She could say,
Right.
"Oh, he was gross.
Some
He
cosmic
tried to stick his tongue down my
payback.
throat," and I was like, "I thought we were,
We were kissing.
right? I thought that was what we were good, like, but it's impossible anyway." So you spend hours racking your brain thinking like, is someone else going to come and say, "Oh yeah, this is totally, I believe this because he was gross then, and
Sure.
10 years ago at a college party he said this out of context." Yeah, I guess that is a gross thing to say. I don't know. You just, so you circle and circle around all these vague past memories, holding your breath that someone else isn't gonna, for some reason, because they think your show sucks, or
they just don't
like you,
someone who's successful and happy.
Right. That they're going to come up and because really that would be the thing, right? Like if you're accused of being gross in a vague, sort of hard to define way, and then someone else is like, "Oh yeah, he's gross," then all of a sudden it's almost less about whether or not you were gross the one time, and it becomes sort of, "Oh,
you are gross."
You're probably
it's a tribunal,
gross. Right?
And I always say that for the people like the main sort of people that have gone down over the last few years for this, I have found as an observer, it's never quite been a single act. It's been egregious behavior for decades.
Right.
That finally, karmically or whatever, it couldn't stand anymore.
Right.
Them living with impunity, and it was over.
Right.
And then anyone to me who has survived any sort of controversy, be it this or when like Bill Maher said the N-word on Real Time, you look at something like that and you go like, we know who Bill Maher is. Like we've known who he was for decades.
Right.
And we know that was just completely poor use of judgment in that moment.
Sure.
But there's nothing to support that he believes anything remotely
or that he
near
used that word out of hatred.
Yes.
Because he's actually racist.
Right.
Yeah, totally. And so you have that stage. I mean, there's a whole stage. I mean, I don't know if ever I'll do anything with this experience, but there's a stage where you go back through every moment of your life, wondering if who else you've hurt, and reliving those moments, and hoping to God or whoever it is that that person doesn't want to further your suffering. Not to say that if you hadn't done something fucked up, you don't deserve it, but this would be the moment, right? This would be anyone who's ever felt wronged by you, and very rightfully so. If they wanted to, they could add to they could flame the fire. So not having that happen in those first 3, 4, 5 days is the first sort of moment where you think like, okay, I guess I hadn't hurt anyone badly enough where I'd apologized appropriately at the time and expressed my, what's the word for that?
Your sympathy?
Or expressed my whatever. So, okay. And then, like I said a moment ago, you start to realize, well, now it's a test of who I am, right? So if my coworkers and the people who are going to essentially back me up on this don't like me, or if I've ever been a dick out of sort of the sexual realm,
right,
or just not a nice guy, they're not going to really back me up.
Right.
And that's going to make things harder. And so to then see so many people, saying, "No, this is crazy. Nēv's great to work with. He's lovely. He's appropriate." Other colleagues who came forward to say, in fact, conversely to these claims, we had a female producer who had been mistreated by one of the male participants on the show, who'd been talked to inappropriately, who I had defended. I mean, I had actually said to him, like, "You're being gross. You need to stop. Like, that's not okay." And so, to have people come to sort of get your back is a really nice...
It's everything.
And so I've worked really hard on this show, making it something that I'm proud of, that's meaningful, and making sure my crew is happy, and that the environment, well, sometimes I can be a little demanding or tough on people. Like everyone sees that I do it because I care, and I want the show to continue to be a success, and that has worked. And everyone does. I mean, I'm not the only one who wants the show to be good.
No, of course.
But so that's a nice one little sort of takeaway from this is like, wow, people really backed me up, and even MTV, like, if people at MTV didn't like me, this would have been an easy opportunity for them to be like, you know what, screw that guy,
Did you ever start thinking about a plan B? Like, if for some reason this is the worst case scenario,
Right.
what do I do? What do I do to support my family?
Well, that's another part of it, right? Because
Right.
like, I don't have any real specific skill set.
Same here.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah, we're artists.
yeah, I mean, I sort of fell into this weird thing, and I kind of made it from around myself. So
It's been
like,
working.
right. So I don't have real world job set.
Yeah, you're not gonna go temp somewhere.
So very scary.
Right.
Got a young kid trying to move into a new place in New York. Yeah, it's been very scary and stressful.
I always, when I think the shit's gonna hit the fan, I'm like, my buddy is a operations manager for a trucking company. I was like, I'll go assist him.
Right.
I love him. I was like, I'll make probably about $500 a week. I'll figure out how to live on that. But yeah, I mean, it would make sense for something like that to go through your mind because you're so a victim of outside forces.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and look, I'm very lucky. I have a great family
Yes.
who would absorb me and my wife and kid for a period of time.
Whatever you needed.
Right. So I was never like totally out of options, obviously. But the one thing I'll say, sort of, which I think came as the biggest wake up call from all this, was there was a certain point where I realized nothing I do anymore will affect the outcome of this. Like,
Right.
I can call and call and call. I can push and push. I can tell MTV to get us back to work. But like, it's out of my control, and that's really hard for me, especially. Like, if I like things to be manageable. I like to be able to sort of influence my environment, and if I see something that could be done or done better, I do it, or I work towards figuring out how to get it done. And this became one of very few situations in my life where it directly related to me, but was completely out of my control. But my entire future and fate sort of was at stake, and there was nothing I could do.
Right.
Which is such a humbling experience.
Well, then, because you're at the hands of
Well, on one hand, I'm at the hands of this young woman who has said this thing.
Right.
That whatever she could say, right? So I'm at the mercy of this statement that this girl made, and then, there's all these X factors, and then there's MTV's decision on what to do, and it's just so many things that I can't control, and then whatever, and legal processes, and anyway.
But it's as close to death as you could imagine. If you think about it, it's like you're literally like in front of St. Peter at the pearly gates being like, my life must speak for itself.
Right.
Like,
I can't
manipulate you.
Right.
I can't convince you.
That's what's so weird about it. Is that,
Yes.
like, you're right. You're on trial, but you're not allowed to speak for yourself.
Your life is representing you.
So yeah, it is. I guess that's true. It is sort of like your judgment day.
Right.
And it's very scary. And I was so stressed, and I was so out of control, and desperately trying to get it into my control, that I actually got shingles.
Oh, Jesus.
Which, if you don't know, it's a relative of chicken pox.
Right. It's
it's a
virus.
Yeah, but it's a neural virus.
Right.
So it lives in your nerves, and when your immune system gets low or you get too stressed out, it comes out. And most people get it around their like chest or right above their stomach, around like their ribs. I got it on my head.
And it's super painful.
It's very uncomfortable.
Very.
So I got it like kind of on my eyebrow and then up along the top left side of my head.
Wow.
I didn't have a lot of visual. You can see it's just healing now. I had like one sort of scabby area here.
Right.
but I'm still for 3 weeks now dealing with like a really bad headache, like a terrible sort of electric pressure-y kind of migraine headache. And for better or worse, it was a major kind of forced lesson that like, I gotta chill out.
Right.
I have to accept. I mean, there's that prayer that I think a lot of people are familiar with. I don't remember what it's called, but
The Serenity Prayer.
the Serenity Prayer,
Yes.
right? And I've had that kind of playing. I don't know it by heart, but I know that there's one line which is like to accept the things you can't control or something like that.
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change,
Right.
the courage to change the things I can, wisdom
Right.
to know the difference.
Well, I'm focusing just on the first one,
Right.
To accept the things I cannot change.
Yes.
And it's been a really meaningful, kind of eye-opening, emotional and actual physical experience, because even if everything is great, I need to enjoy it and relax and let things happen and be willing to move with them and learn from them, and not, if something doesn't work out for me, not let it ruin my life or make me unhealthy or hurt my relationship with my wife because I'm wound up and not fun to be around. Like, I just have to breathe and accept and chill a little bit.
When I was with you and I ran into you at the Four Seasons, mind you, I saw you and I had seen some of these headlines, and I go, oh, fuck. Like, I'm like, that is the worst. That has got to be, he's got to be going through it so much now. And I knew who you were as a person. I just didn't know how to even broach the topic with you. And then you're there and you're checking in, and we're talking and our wives are talking, and you kind of look at me and go, well, have you heard? Right. And I go, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're like, I mean, I think we'd be fools not to talk about it. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, we probably would. But of course, I would never have brought it up had you not said, listen, this is going on. I can't ignore it.
Right.
And like, I'm just trying my best to get through it. And so then at that point, I was like, well, this seems slightly kismic, in like, if I can be of any sort of, just to get your mind off of everything that's going on and be a friend on this trip.
Well,
like,
you don't know how nice that was, because you know, we run in a very similar circle.
Yeah.
In terms of both our television careers and our social media circle. And so you were the first person that I had seen,
right,
really, at all.
Good old JP.
Yeah,
in the Four Seasons lobby.
Yeah, and for you to sort of say like, okay, this is happening for him. It totally sucks, but I bet you it would mean a lot if I kind of just could be there for him as a friend. And you were so sweet to invite me and my wife out with your friends to dinner, and like that was huge for us.
I'm so glad,
because
and we
at
loved
that
having
moment
you.
We felt like such pariahs, such outcasts, such. We were wearing the scarlet letter,
Of course.
and we were, we went to Hawaii just to kind of escape,
Right.
And fortunately, you were there to sort of not only remind us that we don't need to be ashamed and we don't have to escape, but to then also just make us feel like we were still had some sort of social value and we were good people. It was really great.
I'm so glad. And as I will tell you now, our friends who we were there with, who met you, the immediate feedback was they are just the most adorable couple. Like, they're the big fans.
Wow, cool.
You guys are a super cute couple. And then similarly, even today, when we were planning to do this pod, and out of respect, and I'm this way with everyone that I interview, and I always say, like, if there's something you want me to take out, we'll take out. Like, I'm not in the business of putting something out there that people don't want to talk about. And obviously, you got the great news over the last couple of days that the investigation's complete, the show's reinstated. But I said, like, listen, I'm interested to hear your side of things, but if you don't want to talk about this stuff, we don't have to. And you said, no, I think it's important to at least be honest and communicate some of what's gone on. And so I feel like you did a great job of that.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a fan. Okay, that's it. That was the pod. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Nēv. Thank you, everyone. Have an incredible week. It's Tuesday. If you're listening to this the day it came out, or if you're listening to it later in the week, where you been? Huh? Well, you can't listen to it the day it comes out? What, do you got some more important to do, like living your life and not just being beholden to everything that I want because I'm so full of self-importance? Shut up, Josh. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your week. Summer is sort of coming to an end, and no complaints here. I'm ready for that fall weather, huh? Cozy pumpkin spice season coming in. Fucking bring it on. You know what I mean? I am just basic when it comes to that. I go to Trader Joe's and they have a pumpkin spice section. That's where you find me. Catch me at the pumpkin spice section, you heard? How about that? All right. Let's just end this quick before I make a bigger fool of myself. Love you guys. Thank you. Bye.